Okay, top 7 worst picks of the 2025 NFL Draft. I'll just preface this by saying this doesn't necessarily mean I think these are bad prospects. In fact, any of these players I could see turning out to be good players eventually. Again, I'm not really going to pick anyone who's like, they were picked 212th and I thought, and they aren't that good. I'm mostly just talking about players that I think were overdrafted. Maybe there were better prospects still on the board. Certainly, someone on this list will actually turn out to be the exact correct pick. It's hard to predict these things, but ultimately, I'm going to do my best here. These are the 7 picks that I would say were my least favorite of the 2025 NFL Draft. Let's just get into it. Number 7, I'm going Jonah Savania. I still got to figure out that name. I hope that is correct, or at least close. But ultimately, offensive lineman for the Miami Dolphins, who I think is a fine player. Should be, maybe has starter potential. Does have athleticism. Not fully sure if he will get there, though. It just felt like a bit of a reach. Again, sometimes these are weird. It's a weird situation with Miami because they needed offensive line help, and I'm sure Dolphins fans aren't mad at this pick at all because they needed offensive line help, right? But just traditionally, you draft for need, you usually end up with worse players, and I just think there were better players on the board. So yes, I do think that they helped fill their position of weakness, but I think they could have maybe gotten a better player and tried to fill that position of weakness elsewhere. So again, not one I'm going to crush or anything, but at the pick 7, that's number 7. Number 6, I'm going with the Green Bay Packers' second-round pick, Anthony Belton, who was projected to go 97th in the draft. He went at pick 54, so again, that's not the end-all, be-all, but traditionally when you draft someone who's projected to go around 100 and you draft them at around 50, usually they play like someone who is projected to go around 100. Not always that case, and I do have to say, I think he could be a very good pass blocker. Like his pass blocking metrics and his size do look pretty good. Can he put it all together into run blocking to be a consistent player? And also, just the Packers are already so loaded offensive line-wise. That's why I didn't fully understand it. That being said, I do think he's an interesting prospect. It's a guy worth taking a flyer on, and as a third-round pick, I'd like it a lot more as like a guy who, if he gets it all together, could be a good player. So again, this is one that it could age horribly. Like that's definitely possible. I'm leaving myself open to that, but ultimately, I think it's a bit too risky with this pick. I think there were more surefire prospects on the board that still had high ceilings. Next up, we're going with the Lions, who again, third-round picks. I'm trying to keep more of the first-round picks, but I do have one here. Isaac Tisala here, who is projected to go 100 picks later in the draft. I'm exaggerating. It was only 98 picks later, but still was projected to go a lot later in the draft than he ultimately ended up going. And a lot of people wondered, is this a guy who is more than a special teams guy? He is 6'4". The issue is that he just doesn't really have the production that you would want in college to be drafting a guy this early in the draft when, again, there are good receivers getting taken. Kyle Williams, who I thought was a great receiver, got taken 1 pick earlier, and maybe that's who they wanted, and they had to settle for Isaac Tisala, but ultimately, that is unfortunate. I just don't really know if I don't see the vision here. Again, I could be wrong. I'm sure that the Lions know what they're doing here, but I just got to evaluate what I can see, and I don't really fully get this one. The Chicago Bears took Colston Loveland with the 10th overall selection. He was projected to go 15th, and he was projected to go behind Tyler Warren. And to be honest, I'm kind of okay with all of that. Like, that's fine. You took him a little bit earlier. You liked him more than Warren. I don't think it's that crazy to like him more than Warren. My biggest complaint right now is, and I don't love the draft for need, but for tight ends, when you only have one player and you have Cole Kmet, I mean, okay, you do play multiple tight ends, but ultimately, there are a lot of times when you're only going to have one tight end on the field. Is the jump from Loveland to Kmet worth it in that scenario to spend a premium pick, a top 10 pick, for a position that also should be mentioned does not have the highest hit rate? I know Brock Bowers worked out really well. To me, Brock Bowers was a generational prospect. I had a much higher grade on Bowers than I did on Kyle Pitts, who I also liked like everyone did. But I think Bowers is an exception. So ultimately, again, there is a chance he works out. I think he's going to have success in the Ben Johnson offense. And this is going to be one probably similar to Gibbs, where he's going to do a very specific thing that they want him to do and look awesome in that offense. And then everyone's going to say, wow, you were all stupid for doubting this. But I just feel like Cole Kmet probably could have done that and still been pretty good at it. So I don't know if they're gaining the full value, but that's just how I see it. Number 3 might be a bit of a controversial one for some people, but I am going Jalen Walker, who I just think is such a developmental guy. Like, don't get me wrong, the highlights he has and kind of the freak athleticism, and there's something here with Jalen Walker. I just don't know what he is. So he's a edge rusher / linebacker that the Falcons have drafted. I don't think Atlanta really cares about his off-ball linebacker stuff, which is good because I don't think he was very good at being an off-ball linebacker. But because of that, he just has such little playing time as an edge rusher. He's going to have to learn the position. I think it's going to take him some time to figure it out. He's a great athlete, and if he can figure it out, they could have a great edge rusher. So they're taking a bit of a chance here. I just feel like there were better players on the board at this point, so I would have rather gone with a guy who I feel more comfortable with. Number 2, the Dallas Cowboys selected Tyler Booker with the 12th overall pick. He's a player who, again, should be a pretty fine player for them. Like, I don't think they're getting a bad player here necessarily, but it just was this maximizing your value. He's a guard who is going to need to develop a little bit if he's going to fully work in the NFL. And listen, I think the Cowboys trust their developmental process. So in a vacuum, I'm not going to necessarily crush a move like this, but again, I just feel like there were better players on the board. You could have gone with a Walter Nolan. You could have gone with a Matthew Golden if you wanted to go that route. You could have gone with a Tyler Warren even though they're okay at tight ends. Maybe they just say, well, he's the best player available, right? Things like that. Jody Barron was still on the board, even though I think they feel okay corner-wise, but maybe, there were good players on the board that they could have gone with, and instead it just felt like a reach. Again, I don't think he's going to be a bad player, but it just feels like they kind of got the 30th best prospect despite having the 12th best selection. And finally, the Cincinnati Bengals selected Shemar Stewart. It's a pick I'm talking about a lot here, and I want to be clear, I don't think it's the worst selection in the world, taking Stewart with a mid first round pick, here at 17. Like, I do think there are some intriguing things for him. I know that the pass rush production is just horrible. It is, and you're going to have to figure that out. But he is still a good run defender, and he is so athletic that you could potentially figure out exactly how to use him. My biggest complaint with this is just, I still don't think he should be. I think there were better prospects on the board. I would have rather gone with a Derek Harmon or James Pierce Jr., even though some of those guys went a little later. I like those. I think there were better players. Jody Barron could have been a pick here. I would have loved that one. So there were better players on the board, better prospects on the board, in my opinion, in my evaluation. But also, why are we drafting a developmental guy when you're trying to be good right now? The Bengals are loaded offensively. They need to figure more stuff out, and they can't afford to miss on another first-round draft pick, which Stewart does have a much higher bust factor than other guys do. I can't call it bust factor. I have to find a better way to phrase that, but ultimately, you know what I'm trying to say. There's a bigger issue. There's chances things could go wrong with Shemar Stewart. Higher chances things could go wrong with him. So we'll see if it works out. But again, all these picks could work out. This is just my opinion based on my evaluations. Feel free to disagree in the comments below. Let me know, what picks do you agree with me on? What are some other picks that maybe should have made this list? Always love hearing from y'all. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.